Hey guys, Budcat7 here. Okay, it is Tuesday, October 1st, 2019, and I want to thank you for visiting the Stonewall Research channel here on YouTube. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. All right, guys, we got to talk about the New World, quote unquote, bias and the Old World baloney, and how thick do you like it sliced? Because just there's a new picture about the world and the past that's emerging, maybe because of the internet, maybe because new information, new data, whatever it is. Okay, there's a new picture of the world emerging from the ashes of the old view of what history was, what our past was, etc., etc., and that's dead. Okay, and we have a new picture now. So that's what I intend to try to instill into people in a lot of my videos, and this is why I felt it necessary to do this. Okay, and essentially what I'm going to do is read from Charles C. Mann's book, 1491, to sort of illustrate, where the current state of archaeology and anthropology in the Americas is, and what it's saying about the actual past. Okay, and no doubt there's a lot of controversy that goes along with it, and of course, Mann includes that in his book. Okay, so we're going to look at his book here, 1491, New Revelations of the Americas Before Columbus, which is essentially what the whole book is about, all these new revelations. Okay, and I've got out my crumpled scroll notes here, as my buddy Stephen Ireland likes to say, that got all squished down in my laptop case. But this is from Charles C. Mann's book, and the chapter is called Very Old Bones, and it's from a section of the book called Pleistocene Wars. Okay, and they're talking about Clovis. And if you don't know anything about Clovis culture and when it's actually dated from, we'll read a little bit about it here. The Clovis culture is a prehistoric Paleo-American culture named for the distinct stone tools found in close association with Pleistocene fauna at Blackwater Locality Number 1 near Clovis, New Mexico in the 1920s and 1930s. It appears around 11,500 to 11,000 uncalibrated, you get that, right? Uncalibrated radiocarbon years before the present, all right? This is why they're constantly looking for better dating methods, because the radiocarbon dating is unreliable, in their opinion, okay? At the end of the last glacial period, which you know what I think about that, that's forget about glacial period. The other events were going on, and that's what we're getting to the point of in much of the research that we do. And is characterized by the manufacture of Clovis points, quote unquote, and the distinctive bone and ivory tools. Archaeology's most precise determinations at present suggest that this radiocarbon age is equal to roughly 13,200 to 12,900 calendar years ago. Clovis people are considered to be the ancestors of most of the indigenous cultures of the Americas. Okay, so you get that. So I'm just not going to read any more from that. You just keep that in mind. All right, maybe I'll leave it on that page there. Okay, there's a Clovis point right there. Okay, these fluted type flaking on these, and you see the way there's a cut in it in the bottom, okay, to hold the spear shaft, which is, specific to these Clovis points, from what I understand. All right, so let's read from my crumpled up scroll from notes from Charles C. Mann's book. Okay, so Let's just read it. It's talking about Monteverde too. So let me show you that as well. Monteverde is this site down in Chile, and it's very, very far south. It's almost as far south as you can go. See, there it is, right there, and it's pretty well down there. And this is what the site looks like. A lot of cows and farmers shack there and a dog and a stream. But this is where the archaeological site is, I guess. We have no pictures from the actual archaeology to show there, apparently, but that's where it is. All right, so let's get back to the book here and see what they say. What man says. Righty. Okay, so they're talking about this Monteverde site. In the 20 years between the first shovelful of dirt and the final errata sheets, the scientists concluded that Paleo Indians had occupied Monteverde at least 12,800 years ago. Not only that, they turned up suggestive indications of human habitation more than 32,000 years ago. Okay, you get that? You see that in there? 32,000 years ago. You understand? And Monteverde, even at 12,800 years ago, is before Gobekli Tepe. All right? Okay, so Monteverde in southern Chile is 10,000 miles from the Bering Strait. Archaeologists have tended to believe that the Paleo Indians would have needed millennia to walk from the north end of the Americas to the south. If Monteverde was a minimum of 12,800 years old, Indians must have come to the Americas thousands of years before that. Okay? According to them, with the migration theory from either the Bering Strait or crossing the Pacific, again into the Americas and not out of the Americas, and not accounting for people actually being here, is what the current native peoples, at least the more sophisticated ones, currently believe. And these dates keep going further and further back in time. We're going to look at that Monteverde article in Wikipedia again to show you what I mean. Okay. For the most part, archaeologists had lacked the expertise to address the anti-Clovis evidence from genetics and linguistics, which is a sort of new way of investigating and doing sort of archaeology and anthropology of the past by genetics and linguistics, as sort of modern method to another way, another avenue to look at people from the past from scientific aspects, from those aspects. But Monteverde was archaeology. Delahaye had dug up something like a village, complete with tent-like structures made from animal hides, lashed together by poles and twisted reeds, a culture that he said existed centuries before Clovis, and that may have been more sophisticated, which is interesting. Skepticism was forceful, even rancorous. Arguments lasted for years, with critics charging that Delahaye's evidence was too low quality to accept. Quote, "People refused to shake my hand at meetings," unquote, Delahaye told me. Quote, "It was like I was killing their children," unquote. So you see that right there. And I constantly mention this to, look, I took psychology in college. It's a minor of mine, but I was a 4.0 student. I probably could have got higher grades than that. And many of my professors said, "I wish I could give you high grades, but we can't. It's only 4.0. But These people are evidently emotionally immature, emotionally retarded people who are in academia here who refuse to shake this man's hand based on his research. I mean, are you for real or just mentally ill? This is just babyish, So this is the kind of thing that this archaeologist got because of his research at this site in Monteverdi. As it turns out, let's read from this Wikipedia article here, which elucidates it a little bit more. Monteverdi is an archaeological site in southern Chile, located near Puerto Montt, southern Chile, which has been dated to as early as 18,500 now. Okay, 16,500 BC. Okay, see, that's quite a bit before Göbekli Tepe and way before the Sumerians. Previously, the widely accepted date for early occupation of Monteverde was 14,500 years, but now it's 18,500 years. You see what I'm saying, guys? These things keep on getting pushed further and further back into the past, okay? And this New World bias that's ingrained into everybody's thinking is very hard to break, okay? So there's going to be a lot of resistance, no doubt, you see? So is the problem overcoming this? And we'll read more in Charles C. Mann's book there to clarify that a bit. The stating added to the evidence showing that the human settlement of the Americas predates the Clovis culture by roughly 1,000 years. This contradicts the previously accepted Clovis first model, unquote, quote unquote, Clovis first, which holds that settlement of the Americas began after 13,500 calendar years. Okay, so the Monteverdi findings were initially dismissed by most of the scientific community, but the evidence then became more accepted in archaeological circles because they did more investigation into it. Paleoecological evidence for the coastal landscape's ability to sustain human life further supports a quote-unquote coastal migration model. Okay, so this is another theoretical model of people coming to the Americas. No possibility of the people already being there because they're discounting other factors, okay? And the Paracas people may not have come from anywhere else, but may have went from there elsewhere. Or just there's people like that all over the planet, as I've gone through in my video. So if that's the case, then most likely they were already there. All right. And who were their ancestors before that? It goes on and on. We just don't know a lot about the past. Dating of rock surfaces and animal bones suggests the coastal corridor was deglaciated and became habitable after 17,000 years. Although testing coastal migration theories can be difficult due to sea level rise since the last glacial maximum, archaeologists are increasingly willing to accept the possibility that the initial settlement of the Americas occurred via coastlines and not on the traditional Bering Strait land routes. Okay, so here's another revision of their perception of what happened in the past to inhabit the Americas, but we know better because this is mainstream research, and it's I'm telling you, the resistance is quite, tough, and it's going to be a while for these people to free their minds enough to understand that there's a different picture of the past that they are not cognitive of. All right, so let's get back here. And the people wouldn't shake the guy's hands, and this is Tom Dillahay. Okay, they wouldn't shake the guy's hand. At the end of this thing here, it says, Monteverdi is real. Alex W. Barker, now at the Milwaukee Public Museum, told the New York Times, it's a whole new ball game. Okay, whole new ball game. You get it? This is what they know. This is what mainstream, whatever it is, it's a whole new ball game. Hey. Okay. Um, the dispute over the Clovis model kept growing. In the 1990s, geologists laid out data indicating that the ice sheets were bigger and longer lasting than had been thought, or the cataclysms had been ongoing and frequently and recurring all the time, and this is what they take as whatever supposed ice age dumb thing that they're talking about. Ice sheets bigger and longer. Well, ice sheets down in the equator with palm trees and everything else. And that even when the ice-free corridor existed, it was utterly inhospitable. Worse, archaeologists could find no traces of Paleo-Indians or the big mammals they supposedly hunted in the corridor from the right time. Meanwhile, paleontologists learned that about two-thirds of the species that vanished did so a little before Clovis appears in the archaeological record. So what they're getting at is this whole theory about all these animal species being hunted to extinction by, these Paleolithic peoples. Okay, apparently these species had vanished before Clovis, and the reason why the species vanished, like the giants, who took actually a longer time to die out because they had been interbreeding as a way to preserve their DNA, okay, all these species died out is because the gravity changed on the planet. Something happened to this planet where the gravity change is the only thing that can support their own theories about how the dinosaurs supported themselves in our current gravity. They couldn't do it. Okay, so they don't know why, but these large animals existed and large humanoids existed as well. Large hominids. Okay. Finally, Clovis people may not have enjoyed hunting that much. Of the 76 U.S. Paleo-Indian camps surveyed by Meltzer and Donald K. Grayson, an archaeologist at the University of Washington at Seattle, only 14 showed evidence of big game hunting. All of it just two species, mastodon and bison. Quote, the overkill hypothesis lives on, unquote, the two men sneered. Not because of support from archaeologists and paleontologists who are expert in the area, but because it keeps getting repeated by those who are not. You see that right there. This is what I'm constantly saying to people. There's this third party of people who they're not in the mix. They don't have their finger on the pulse of it. They're just going by whatever they learned or they read once in a while from other people who don't know. Okay, not because of support from archaeologists and paleontologists who are expert in it, but because it keeps getting repeated by those who are not archaeologists and paleontologists. Okay, whoever they may be. Okay, so again, it's these third party of people. These are the ones that often make comments on my channel, other people's channels, mainstream, whoever, because they just don't know shit. They know whatever their bullshit education gave them, which is a lot of nonsense, okay? They're not even up on the current anything, and even people within mainstream academia are not up on it. They only read peer-reviewed stuff. They don't read anything else because they're, pedantic or whatever F they are, okay? Obstinate is more likely, okay? All right, so the ultimate demise of the Clovis dogma is inevitable. David Hennig, author of Numbers from Nowhere, told me. Okay, the Numbers of Nowhere is a book that talks about the millions and millions of native peoples in the Americas at the time of the explorers, and how the 95% of them were basically exterminated either through violence or disease in the most part. Okay, so 100 years later, when the settlers and colonists got here and saw the people there and counted them and everything, they thought that that's the way that it was for, millennia. Okay, but this is not true. And their own accounts give, reports of that. But All right, so quote, archaeologists are always dating something to 5,000 years ago and then saying that this must be the first time it occurred because they haven't found any earlier examples. And then, incredibly, they defend this idea to the death. It's logically indefensible, unquote. Clovis first, he said, is, quote, a classic example of arguing from silence, even in archaeology, which isn't exactly rocket science, unquote, he chuckled. Quote, there's only so long you can get away with it, unquote. Okay, so he's talking about these emotionally immature, emotionally retarded people who are in the fields of academia that concern themselves with this, who are just, they don't want to resist. They're these whoever. They're like the stupid sports fans that I talk about. Oh, the Yankees suck, the Boston Red Sox suck, and the Oakland A's suck, and the LA Dodgers suck. No, they don't suck. They're some of the best teams in the league, and they usually have some of the best players in the league. Okay? That's what a real sports fan thinks. The stupid sports fan is like, the Yankees suck. And they most certainly do not. So, that's idiot. Effing moron. Low IQ morons. Okay, so let's read a little bit more about this. Okay, so man's writing here. What seems unlikely to be undone is the awareness that Native Americans may have been in the Americas for 20,000 or even 30,000 years. Given that the Ice Age, and pushing back even further with more and more, I've heard up to 40,000 years in some of these archaeology reports that I've read about the Americas, okay? So it's just going further, and don't forget the lady from Micah Cremo's film there, Forbidden Archaeology, who found the artifacts in 300,000-year-old strata, okay? And then, she was summarily drummed out of the field of academia there by the low IQ morons who say the Red Sox suck. Given that the Ice Age made Europe north of the Loire Valley uninhabitable until some 18,000 years ago, the Western Hemisphere should perhaps no longer be described as the New World. Britain, home of my ancestor Billington, this is man's ancestor, was empty until about 12,500 BC because it was still covered by glaciers or still getting hammered by whatever was hammering the planet. If Monteverdi is correct, as most believe, people were thriving from Alaska to Chile, with much of northern Europe was still empty of mankind and its works. So, my friends, this is where the current state of archaeology, anthropology, paleontology is today in the Americas. Okay, these are all quotes from mainstream archaeologists and anthropologists and paleontologists. Okay, but naturally people in their field disagree with them. But you can see by the article in Wikipedia there. Okay, it's becoming more generally accepted. Okay, it's starting to break. Okay, we can only hope in the future that it will be completely broken, and then they're going to start looking into what the real picture of, and this whole migration thing is nonsense, and refers to later dates, and people were already here in the Americas, all right? So this whole New World thing, and this is the only sections where I'm just taking out of man's book from some crumpled pages in my laptop bag there, okay? But the whole book is filled with these archaeologists and anthropologists making statements like that at various sites that the man goes and visits with them. Their whole picture of the Americas, it was wrong. Okay, in their opinion, and they have to look at this with a fresh eye, with a fresh head, okay, and rethink the whole thing. You see? All right, so that's what we're doing here, okay? We're not going to stick with the old mainstream narrative, whatever it may be, Ice Age, Bering Strait, Siberian. Look, there's Siberian and Asian people who have crossbred in, Asia, all right, and in Siberia, okay? They don't look like American Indians. They're not exactly the same, and this is what the problem is. There's other DNA in native blood that they don't know what the heck it is, or they're not prepared to admit it, or they don't want to admit it, okay? And what is this DNA? Well, maybe it's from the people who are already here. You dig? Whoever they were, large hominids, elongated skulls, whoever, we don't know. This is why we're trying to get a better picture of the past. All right, so in any case, guys, before I go, I just want to mention Steve in Ireland, a good friend and subscriber to the channel, who has his organic honey. Okay, he's a beekeeper, and this wacko job here is showing you here in his bee suit here is it's about his bee smoker there and keeping his bees here, and he's holding some of his buddies there right now. He has this organic honey that he's offering for sale. I'm getting me some, okay, in various sizes. So it's organic honey, and look, we buy the stuff in the store. Half of the stuff is corn syrup honey and GMOs in it, and who knows how it was processed, and you don't know. Honey's supposed to be sterile as far as I know, but and an amazing energy source. So here's somebody who's got some beautiful organic honey offered up for sale here. So I'm going to put a link to Steven's video in here where he tells you about making some garlic honey here, which sounds very interesting to me. I like to cook, so cooking with honey garlic sounds real interesting to me, especially with Asian foods. Okay, so I'll put a link to the video there. Steven's a great guy, and he hosts this channel here called The Sloppy Scientist. He's got hardly any subscribers, but he's a terrific guy. He's a very interesting guy and very articulate and smart guy from a sort of pragmatic, scientific viewpoint. And he just, talks and tells you about some stuff. And here he is with his honey. He's been working on that for his last couple of videos. So please do check him out and subscribe. All right. So guys, please hit the like button if you kindly would, and I'll be with you with a new video on going into the giants and large hominids state by state again. And but guys, signing out. Peace.